Kia ora, Amber. Welcome to the podcast and being with me today. I am really excited about sharing your business and your journey with our listeners today.
Kia ora, Sandra. Tēnā koe. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me as a guest on your podcast. As you know, I do listen to a few of them. So yeah, it's exciting to actually be here creating one with you.
Yeah, nice. I was, when I was researching potential guests and looking at who are the other Māori business owners and what do they do, when I came across your business, I was just completely fascinated. So I would love to start with you introducing yourself to our listeners, who you are, who you serve, and what you do to make your moolah.
Oh, lots wrapped up in there.
Yeah.
Firstly, we'll start with, I think, a bit of whakapapa and connection. So he uri ahau o Ngāti Whātua Te Raroa Ngāpui, me Ngāti Mutinga Te Aotearoa hoki. Through my mama, I whakapapa to Te Taitokerau. So right through the north, through her whānau and ancestors up there, and then through my papa down to Ngāti Mutinga, our Taranaki whānau, right through to Wanganui. So quite a broad spectrum there. Proud Māori. I am the co-founder and CEO of ARA Journeys. We are a digital tech company that really specialises in using immersive technologies, so augmented reality, virtual reality. We combine that with artificial intelligence, our AI, and gamification, and we create mobile apps and games that reconnect people back to the land. And we do that based on Indigenous cultural narratives, knowledge, and language.
That is so amazing. I am in awe. So who do you serve with that product? So who would you say is your client?
First and foremost, we serve our Māori communities or our Indigenous communities. If we're working offshore, they're always our first point of contact. They're not always our first client, but they are always the first relationship that we look to build and look to explore when we are working in other areas. So I'd put them down as number one. Secondly, we look to serve our underrepresented or minority groups in the tech sector. So really shining a light on the opportunities and possibilities in tech with relation to how are we preserving our Indigenous knowledge and our languages and ensuring that all our kōrero, all our stories are passed on to the future generations. So that's who we serve first and foremost, but that's not always who pays our bills.
Yeah, nice. So then, is it the iwi or Māori organisations that are looking to engage you to then tell the story? What does that look like when you are going, all right, I want to grow and expand my business, so now I need to go looking for clients? What does that look like for you?
So that's one way that we generate revenue within the company is working with iwi and mana whenua. At this stage in the company's growth, we've always worked with the willing. So a lot of our Māori kaumātua kuia who are not really familiar with technology, there's a bit of a reluctance there to use the platforms that we've got to start handing over some of that real traditional knowledge. So that's always been a hard sell for us. However, there has been a shift since we started, and more iwi are now starting to come on board. So that's been really exciting to start working in those spaces, and then internationally with other Indigenous cultures as well has been something that we've been really proud to be able to do and offer. The other main clients we work with are the Ministry of Ed, so we create educational content for our kura kaupapa Māori that's right across New Zealand, as well as deliver augmented reality and gaming workshops within our schools, and that's ranging from primary through to high school.
Oh, so there's an education piece in there teaching them how to put the stories together or how to use the technology, as opposed to just actually doing it all and then handing over the end product?
Yeah, and that's a big part of our ethos within the company as well, is there needs to be that educational piece and that upskill piece, both with our rangatahi in skills, but also rangatahi within iwi, because we can't, with what we're creating and the legacy that we're looking to leave around preserving our knowledge and our languages and pulling it into the digital space, which is going to become just the norm for our future generations. We actually need those generations knowing how to use the tech, how to do it responsibly, ethically. So there's a huge upskill piece that underlies a lot of our work.
Then my next question is that how did you get into this work? You know, it's very emerging and isn't, I don't know, and this is maybe me showing my age, but you know, I wouldn't say that this would be a well-known career path, or there is lots of opportunities for people with skills in the augmented reality space, which you are, you know, to me, it feels like normalizing and making available in an everyday world. And it's not just exclusive for those who have, you know, some moolah to put into playing with the technology. You're making it really accessible in every day. So how did you get into this field?
It was unintentional. I met my business partner who I started the company with. We were catching up one day outside of our previous employment and just chatting about, you know, the history of place. And Dr. Isaac Warbrick, he's always been fascinated with locations and what happened there. So like we'd be going for a walk down Queen Street, whatnot, and it'll be like, oh, I wonder what happened here. Like what grew here before the buildings? How did the iwi survive? Like what were their daily activities? So that was always ticking over in his head, and that's like everywhere he goes. And his wife's like, yeah, it can get annoying sometimes if they're traveling. And for me, it was more around. So I have the tech background, and you know a lot about the emerging tech space. And for me, I was looking at, well, how can we use these technologies now to create content that better serves our kids. And when we first started the company, we were looking at our urban Māori, those that may feel a little bit of disconnect from their turanga waiwai or, you know, their marae, or wherever they feel that connection or that home for them. How do we start creating the bridge for them to actually go back home or want to connect back home and feel safe enough to do it? So yeah, there's a lot of research, or there's a lot of articles that have been written around people who grew up outside of their marae feeling shy or not worthy of being able to go home. And so we looked at that kind of feeling and need and looked at the technology and created a prototype and just kind of hit the ground running.
I love that you saw that market, because I grew up at home. I grew up, you know, in and around the marae. So when I went on a road show with, when I was sitting on the Runanga for Ngāti Mutunga, and we went on a road show, and I got to meet people in different areas of New Zealand who had never been back to the marae. That was the story that they kept telling. Like, I really want to go back, but I just don't know how to go about that. I'm a little bit like, it feels I'm feeling a draw, but I feel uneasy and I don't know how to go about it. And what if I screw that up? Or what is the appropriate way to do it? You know, so they had all of this story around wanting to connect with their iwi and their marae that they know they whakapapa to, but they had never been there, they grew up away from that place. So the need that you identified for your product and what you do, is very real. And I heard a lot of that when we went on that roadshow, which just opened my eyes yet again, because I was the person grew up at home, you know, so
Yeah.
didn't realize that was such a big barrier for some people who grew up away from home. So love that story of how you saw that need, and now you've grown a business all around that.
Yeah, well, we were that need.
You're right.
So, yeah, well, I was lucky enough, like we did go home to Iranui Pa quite frequently when I was a kid, when my nan was alive. So she was like a whānau hui hopper, and she'd often pick my sister and I up and would disappear for weekends to go to different marae and to go back home. But when she passed, those visits became less and less frequent. And then, just at the time, even before the time of starting the company, I was seeing it in my kids. Like, I hardly ever took them home. And then I think that fear inside of me was growing, and then I knew what I was doing to them by not like connecting in as often. So it kind of stemmed from there as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, creating the product for your own need. Tell me about one project that stands out for you that you were like the most proud of in creating, and what was that?
There's two really. So the Journeys of Manu will always be my favorite. That was the second prototype of Journeys of Manu. No, sorry, the first prototype, the very first thing we built. And it wasn't anything flash. It was using technology that had actually been around for a little while, but just wasn't really in the public eye that much. But when we launched that at a community event, we didn't realize how big of a deal it was, or how many disconnected Māori there were who were like me. So that kind of validated how I was feeling. I didn't realize how many there were. But also, once we launched, we didn't realize how many non-Māori were interested in our kōrero and our ways of learning. So the first Journeys of Manu focused on the Puhanui stream, which is out in Manukau City, and Wiri in Tamaki Makaurau. That particular stream has been let go. It's polluted. You can't really get any kai from it or swim in it. People don't like to picnic next to it because it smells. But when we released this first app, it really talked about how mana whenua once lived off the land and the importance of their awa to them and their health and well-being. Once we finished the event, which was a community walk, 6K community walk for families, kids, it was super family friendly. The feedback that we got was just amazing. Just the number of people who were local residents who actually didn't understand the significance of that particular waterway. And now that they had that realization, they wanted to do more for the community. So they said they'd get involved in the cleanups. They'll like take better care of the awa and the land that surrounds them. And then we had feedback from other people who'd been here for ages who just didn't really realize the significance of the whenua to Māori. And so when you put it in a context like the storytelling that we had in that digital space, they started to visualize, well, you could visualize it because it was augmented, but they could see it for themselves and have that emotional connection to the land like we do as Māori. So creating that behavioural change in that space was really, really cool for that prototype. So that will always be my favourite. And also that's how we got the company started, because about 8 weeks after that, we had a big client approach and say, oh, we've got this much money, what can you do for us? And that's actually when we started the company, because we had to be GST registered, and at that stage Isaac and I weren't even thinking about starting a company.
So the Journeys of Manu, that first thing you did, that was just for the fun of it?
Yeah. Oh, not really fun. We were kind of like, let's see what we can do. Like, it followed that kōrero space. So we were like, oh, if there's Māori around the area who haven't connected to their marae, even though it might just be down the road, this is going to give them some insights into their iwi and their hapu and, things that were significant to them as a whānau. So, we didn't realise the impact it would have on that particular community, or just how much we could do in that space at that time.
How has that community moved since you did that, or how long ago was that, and what's that move been like in the community, and what's that waterway now looking like?
So that particular build was done in 2017.
Okay.
We established the company 2018. And the community impact's been amazing. So there's now I think they're called the ARA Rangers, which is led by another community group, Māori-led community group, and they bring in a whole heap of people to do planting, native planting, stream cleanups. We've heard that the water quality has improved, which has been really, really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, the impact's been great, and that's kind of been, that was the starting point, and ever since then, like, most of the work that's come through has been word of mouth.
Wow. Yeah. Because once you put a product out and someone experiences it, then they know it's available, and then they can see what's possible for the stories they want to tell, or the projects that they have. So what was the second one?
The second one is called Tūwhiri, Revealing Our Stories. So Tūwhiri has been probably our biggest build to date. And to give you what Tūwhiri is in short, basically, you know, the Pac-Man arcade game, Pac-Man comes along, eats a thing. We created a platform that turns you, the mobile phone holder, into Pac-Man. And your role in this augmented reality game is to go around communities and collect the local stories, like nodes that have been produced for mana whenua for those areas. So Tūwhiri is the core reason behind building Tūwhiri is because the technology that we work with is really expensive. So that hire the team or even another team to build something at a quality that you'd be proud of can cost a lot of money. So what we did with Tūwhiri is we actually built the infrastructure, so the entire platform, and enabled it so that other people can have their stories put on top. So we still need to do the augmented reality and the content for those stories, but it means that, say, iwi, they're not paying for the infrastructure build because we've already done it.
Right.
So it saves quite a significant amount of money not having to recreate everything from scratch every time someone wants a story put up.
Wow, that's incredible. And does that cover just a particular area at the moment? Like Tūwhiri, is that location wise? Is that
so
just
all our mahi you have to be on location to experience, which is our driver behind getting people outdoors and giving them a good reason to go out, connect, some educational content in there, which is good for kids. But it's New Zealand wide.
Okay.
And it's also scalable to international markets.
That's amazing. So that's your proprietary piece, is that platform which covers the whole entire country and now is going to be offshore as well. And then you just build on top of that. Did I get that right?
Yeah. So we just create different activations in different areas. We also have the part of that particular platform sectioned off for schools. So when we're finished doing the workshop with the schools, they actually have all their characters put in the live game itself, and they can go and show their parents or whānau, or whoever the characters and the stories that they've created.
Wow. That's pretty cool to be doing that in schools. Like, that beats doing geography and history in school.
Yeah, we got some great feedback just around the uptake and the willingness and, I guess, the enthusiasm of the kids, of the students that we worked with. Like, one in particular that was really touching, we worked with a school down in Kawerau, and they had one of their students was a little bit mischief, quite often in trouble, like nearly every day in trouble. But the 2 days that the workshop was run, the teacher said that's the best behaved that kid's ever been, most engaged, and he couldn't actually wait to get home and ask his dad if he could come into the location where that story was so that he could show him the work that they had created.
Yeah. So you just have to ignite the child, like ignite our kids with the right stories or the right experience and learning that they are excited about. It's not that they're misbehaved kids or bad kids. It's just that they're bored.
Yeah, they're
bored. Yeah, love that so much. So how long have you had that platform that you've built, and how long did it take you to get that into place within your business? Because presuming that's now the basis on which you build everything?
Not everything, so we still do some custom builds, but for a lot of the iwi or whānau groups and small business as well who are looking to have some storytelling done, that's generally the platform that they'll opt for because it is a lot cheaper than some of the other work that we do.
Yeah.
But Tūwhiri we started building during lockdown. We had it was in the process, and then lockdown hit, so that enabled us to fully focus on finishing the platform. Tūwhiri is designed to scale with new technology, so it will never be 100% finished ever.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
We've built it to enable ourselves to keep adding different functions, adding different features, keeping up with what's happening in our industry and with tech. Yeah. So that we can make sure that it's modern and relevant no matter how many years down the track we get. And we've designed it like that to be done minimum cost, because obviously you don't want to have to recreate an entire platform just because something over here has changed. Yeah. Tūwhiri was purposely built like that. The other cool thing that I love about the Tūwhiri platform is when we were coming out of lockdown, we were thinking as a team, how can we use this experience, because it fits nicely within tourism. How can we use this experience to help other local Māori and Pacifica businesses build back as well? So we put a reward system into the Tūwhiri game. And so for every little snippet that you collect, or every little story that you collect, you actually receive rewards that can be spent in real life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so it was designed so whatever region that you're in. So there are some online partners where you can, if you choose to purchase from them, you can directly, but for the most part, we try and keep the reward system within the community in which that story lives.
Right. That is a lot of work. What does your team look? Yeah. What does your team look like? I'm intrigued, because one is the platform is cool, but then you're building stories on top of the platform, and now you're adding rewards in real life into that virtual reality space. So what does your team look like?
Oh, my team's amazing. We're only really small. Like, people often think I've got this massive team of like 8 to 10 to maybe 20 people. And I'm like, no, we're quite small and quite tight. So there's 5 of us in total that complete all the work here. It's a good number at the moment for what we're doing. I don't believe in hiring people for the sake of having a big team. I don't see any benefit in that. And I kind of get a little bit shocked when people are like, oh, you should really be hiring. And I'm like, well, you actually don't even know what we do. So why are you making that comment to me?
Yeah.
But, the advantages of having a small team is we've got little to no bottlenecks in our process and our workflow. And so deadlines are always met. I run the company remote. They have full flexibility around structuring their workday, their work hours. We have an unlimited leave policy within the company. And that's unlimited leave on pay that they can take. And yeah, I think it's just a really nice size for what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't have to stress about trying to find work for a team because we've outgrown the work that's coming in.
Yeah.
And in saying that, it means that the team working from home aren't really in a space where they can slack off.
Okay.
Because we've always got deadlines, and they can structure their day and have that flexibility. But, I don't have to be like, oh, we're paying this person and I'm not sure what they're doing. But I know what my team are doing because I know what our deadlines are.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And I don't have to answer it, which is what I like.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what I was interested to know a bit more about is, unlimited leave policy, and you're working remotely. Yes, you've got projects and you've got deadlines, but juggling those two things can be a challenge. But obviously you've hired the right people by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I hire based on values and how well someone will gel with my team as opposed to credentials and certs.
Right.
Because, we can teach skills within the company. and that. And we can teach you how to do a role if you've got the basics and the basic know-how. But I can't teach you to be passionate about what we do, or, to understand why certain things around ethics and, the use of AI in our company, like understanding the ethos behind those. Yeah, we can tell you about it, but unless you really resonate with what we're trying to achieve and our values as a company, we can't teach you that.
And so the team that you are hiring, you must need quite specific skills to, work in that augmented reality, artificial intelligence space. What does that look like?
Very specific skills. And so far to date, we've actually had apprentice and interns who we've trained to come up to speed with and be at the level that we need them at to start producing the work we need. So yeah, a lot of it's been upskilling within the company and just looking for the people who are best fit for us and who we are best fit for as well. And yeah, upskilling in that space. Perfect example, we've just hired a tech artist apprentice. And during that hiring process, we had 20-something applications come in for the role, shortlisted to 6 interviews, and then shortlisted to 2 second interviews. And the difference in those second interviews, one was someone fresh out of university, so just finished a degree, and the other person was a senior, probably well overqualified, a lot of experience for the role. Either would have done a great job, would have done a great job, but we ended up going with the graduate, and that was purely because of her values, her fit within the team culture, and we knew that we could work with her and bring her up to scratch at a pace that we needed her to be at.
Nice. Talk to me a little bit about your team culture. How are you fostering team culture in a remote environment?
There's a few different things we do. People often think like we don't talk much, but we've got a complete setup with a whole heap of different channels that the team feeds into. Like it goes off all day. I'm often like muting it so I don't hear the notifications. I turned it off for this. So I didn't get distracted. And it's just within that team, like that online environment, we have a different channel for different things. And so one of those channels is called From the Nest. And that's where you basically just take a photo, doesn't matter what it is, that's non-work related, and you post it. So it's our own version of Instagram.
Right.
So that we could see like what the team's doing or what that might be of interest to them that day. We also have a like general work topic general non-work channel where the team will talk about their day or like kids or, if there's something at school happening, family matters. So we still bond in that sense. It's just, mostly online. Fridays we have team game day or team game afternoon. So 3:30 we jump online and we all jam out games together. And it's just a space where we don't talk about work, but we can just jump on and enjoy each other's company.
Nice.
So we connect in different ways. And then we even within the program that we use, there's a space where we can set up different lounges where it's video meetings, and we actually have a room called lounge. And so when people jump in there, it's like normally after work chit chat or just a catch up to see how people are doing without talking about work.
Yeah. Nice. And how often would you come together face to face?
Normally once a year we aim for, possibly a couple of times a year, but the team is spread across the North Island.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit different, and the majority of them have families and kids. And generally when we get together, we try and do something that includes the family and kids, so that we can connect and just hang out for the day.
Yeah.
But it depends on schedules really, who's available, who's not. It gets a little bit tricky to try and find time.
Yeah. How are you managing capacity within your team? Like small team, highly productive team, who are obviously committed to the deadlines and managing their own time around deadlines, which might mean some really long days and some really short days. But how are you managing capacity, knowing when you've got a new client knocking at your door going, can I have this? How are you assessing that capacity in your team?
I check in with them
Right.
quite a lot. So burnout's a real issue in our industry, and a lot of studios have staff who have burnt out, and it's quite serious. So I monitor that really closely around the team. I've got one team member who he does like to work at night in the evenings, and will quite often like work to the early hours of the morning and stuff. So like when I can see that online, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Just to get a gauge of where they're at.
Yeah.
And there are a few of them too, like one Friday night, they were all online till about 8 o'clock, and we had no pending deadlines.
Yeah.
So I was like, why are you guys all online? You've got whānau. And they're like, oh, we just wanted to finish this. So they were all like jamming out work together to get something done.
Right.
And that was well ahead of schedule. So
Right.
yeah, I
Okay.
do monitor their time. They have unlimited leave, but I still have to remind them to take leave.
Yeah.
And that's because we can do our normal life things in our work day.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no issues with, and we've got a staff calendar online, and you'll see such and such PT with Jim, and that's at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have like gone for a walk, back in 45 minutes, gone to get groceries, on kid pickups.
Yeah.
And so that stuff's all happening throughout our work days, but it's not stuff that they need my approval for. We just need to know when not to schedule meetings for them, or when they are possibly going to be away from their desk.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
that's what makes it easier for them on the weekends, because they're not having to wait to the weekend to clean the house or to go do groceries, because they can do it if they've got a bit of quiet time at work.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh,
Okay.
go and get groceries at the
Yeah.
hairdresser.
Yes. Yeah, nice. I mean, why I asked that question is, other organizations, and myself included, not everyone knows how to manage their own time. So when you put that responsibility back on the team to manage their own time, that isn't a skill that everyone has had. And I know myself, I've had to do quite a bit of, I don't know whether it's productivity training or just teaching my team how to not, work some long hours because they haven't got themselves in a flow of a way they work. So they could be, a slave to their email for more hours than they need, or they're context switching continuously. So that context switching is a brain drain. And so there's a lot of unproductive time in the middle of all of that context switching. And in our industry in particular, you could be very reactive. So you could spend your whole day being reactive to your email or to internal messages or to small things a client needs, and you're hopping around, 5 projects at once, all just being responsive. And you could spend your whole week just doing that. So then you've got no time to actually get focused work done. So maybe you don't experience that in your business because of the nature of the business, but how do you ensure your team have got the skills they need to manage their time effectively and productively so they're not working longer than they need?
I think it comes down to the person that you're hiring. So you get a general sense of people when you're hiring them, what they'll be good at, what they, where they might struggle. And actually this is one of the things that Ben, who's like my 2IC for the company and really manages the dev environment for us, that was one of the things we discussed with our new hire. It's like, well, she hasn't had a lot of experience in the corporate world, so how are we going to manage burnout? Like, what is, how much can we put on her to achieve without it being too much for her? So we're quite aware of those situations and we'll monitor it, and we're quite upfront with our new member. It's like, you need to tell us because we won't know, and there's no shame in not being able to manage something that we've given you. And I think the cool thing with our team and being open in that space is they see like management come on and be like, I'm just not coping with something today, I'm going to have a nap, I'll jump back on in the afternoon. And there's no judgment. So it really is like a really safe space. Or to be able to reach out to someone if you're stuck or bottlenecked on, say, a piece of code that you can't crack. And then we'll see our software dev jump on and he'll be like, I can't really crack this. And he'll reach out to one of the other staff and he'll be like, can you have a look at this for me and, help me troubleshoot this if you've got time. And so you see the team working together in that respect, really collaborating and helping each other.
Nice. Love that. So then you've got a real picture of like how people are getting on with their workload and really what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think too, because they always say, and this is one of the best compliments I think I've ever had, and it comes from my team, is and I actually first heard it when we were interviewing some other people and they asked the question about the company culture, and Ben answered and he said, I've never felt more human working in that. And I think, that's a really great compliment and kudos for the company. But also they're passionate. Like they always say, oh, I'm online because I love what I'm doing, but I just want to finish this and then I promise you I'll hop offline. So, I mean too, because I'll sometimes work late because creativity, you're in that zone and you just want to get it done. And so I can relate to that as well, but I monitor it to make sure it's not happening all the time.
Yeah. And I know that feeling. It's just like when you're trying to nut something out or you're trying to like work with something new, like when you get in a zone, you're just like, let me just see if that works or this works. And if I move it around this way or if I do that, it's a whole thing. You just can't let it go until you feel like you've nailed it or you're on the path to nailing it. I get that. Yeah.
But they're pretty good. Like if that happens and it is like well into the night, I'll get we'll see a notification come up and it'll be like, oh, gonna start late tomorrow because I'm gonna have a little bit of a sleep in, or I'm gonna go and do this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nice. Beautiful. All right. What are your future goals for your business? Like what does the next kind of 12 months to 3 years look like? What is that? What are the big goals?
Big goals for ARA Journeys is our international expansion. So this year I'm looking to start up in 5 new international markets, which I know is a very big goal, but I like to set those goals for myself and see how far we get. And then for the next 3 years, it will be establishing the studios, so putting in, getting into the setting up headquarters in the different countries as well. So it's really around fine-tuning our international offerings and creating a network of ARA Journeys studios.
Right, okay. So looking also to employ offshore.
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer in Indigenous cultures or Indigenous communities creating their own content.
Okay.
And I always give the reference, it's like when people come over here to Aotearoa and you see a foreign company trying to tell one of our stories, and then you see our tamariki listening to those stories that actually haven't been validated and haven't been told correctly. We don't want to be that person in another country. Okay. So what we're looking to do is establish international studios, have a pipeline feed from Indigenous community members who can work on their own content, who we can upskill in that tech space, again, ticking our underrepresented communities box, and get them to start creating their own content and creating that intergenerational knowledge transfer for their societies as well.
Nice. Can I ask what those 5 countries are?
I can give you an overview.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have to share if that's, if at the moment that is commercially sensitive, that's all good. I was fascinated to see what those other Indigenous cultures, where you see the opportunity globally.
Yeah, so we're currently doing some stuff in Asia. Is one of the first markets we went into. Also looking at the United States and then over in Europe as well.
Beautiful. Love that. All right. What does your business need to do? Like from a business point of view, where do you see the growth needed in your business and your business operations in order to be able to make that international expansion?
A lot of what's going to enable that international expansion is building the relationships,
right.
And that understanding the market need in that space, because it's not going to be the same as here. Although we've got a great framework and a great model for doing things, we're fully aware that that's going to change in every market that we go into, or every country that we enter into. But yeah, so in terms of capability and operations, that's probably the first point of call. We are still 100% Māori owned, so Isaac and I are still the only shareholders in ARA Journeys. We haven't raised any investment for the company, which is something we're really proud of. But obviously going over to international markets, that's something that I will need to look at in that space. And that investment strategy is going to look a lot different to probably anything we've seen done here in New Zealand.
And you'll be looking for investment here locally, or you're open to where that might take you?
I'm open to where that might take us, but from what I know of the investment space and the experiences that I've had to date, so we have had investors offer to put money into the company. We've also been offered from people who want to buy it.
Right.
But purely because of the content that we have and the relationships that we've built and the promises that we've made, obviously there's huge IP wrapped up in what we do. So it's not so straightforward for ARA Journeys, the New Zealand location. But when we start actually establishing the entities in the international market, that gives us a little bit more flexibility, but it will still be trying to stay as true as we can to our core purpose, which is around the Indigenous communities and protecting them and their knowledge in that space, which is why our investment strategy is a lot different to probably what anyone's seen.
Yeah. I was just thinking, what triggered in that piece for me was, when we talk about legacy, and at the moment, holding on to the company is really important around the IP and the stories that you hold. What do you think that's going to look like over the coming years in order for you or Isaac to be able to exit the company if needed or if wanted, because both of those scenarios are quite different.
Yeah.
And ensuring that IP and the stories are still held by their true owners. What does that work? What do you think that work's going to look like?
Yeah, so we're quite lucky with the IP arrangements and contracts that we have now, IP agreements that we have now. The company actually doesn't own any content. So content always remains is always owned by the person who's passed it on to us to put into the digital space. So our IP lies in the platforms, the actual architecture and the data. But in terms of exiting, and we do have an exit strategy, we've managed to structure it in a way where we can still safeguard the core components of what we've created to date. Okay. And when we start moving in the international scene and looking at the international investment that's out there, it's got a different operating model, which I'm actually quite excited about.
What does your upskilling look like at the moment moving into that international expansion, is that a steep learning curve, or you already have, by the sounds to me, that you already have an idea of what you want that to look like, and the stories locally, and who owns that IP, you're really clear on that. But what's that been looking like for you as the business owner and your own personal growth?
Oh, it's been a huge upskill. There's been a lot that I've had to learn in the international market space. And especially, I think, dealing with different business cultures. So when we first started engaging in Asia, like, I had no idea around some of the customs or some of the etiquette when you're out meeting in business like scenarios.
Yeah.
So that was a huge upskill there. And even like heading over to the States when I was over there last year and just having that conversation with the Indigenous people over there, that was a huge learning curve. I think the cool thing with what we've got and the way that ARA is structured at the moment and what we've built to date, the way that that's structured, is we're really agile. And there's multiple applications for our product. So we don't only like sit in the immersive tech cool experience space. We sit under the tourism sector. We fit into health and wellbeing. We are heavily in the edtech space and education sector. So depending on the market need, that drives the avenue and the way that will represent ARA over in those markets.
Okay. How do you keep your mindset intact, when things don't go quite to plan, and that internal voice can sometimes be our biggest critic? How do you keep your own mindset on the path that is helpful for you to keep moving forward?
That's a good question. I like having problems to solve. Like, I don't think there's something out there that I wouldn't find a workaround for, or be able to go, okay, that didn't work, I'm going to try this now, or let's explore this area. Like, being able to pivot on the spot, I think, keeps me sane. The other thing I think that is a huge advantage, and I see it with some other founders that I catch up with on the regular, is we don't have external shareholders in this company. So there's no one breathing down my neck and demanding that we make these changes that aren't suitable for our business or that don't suit the reasons why we started our business. And so not having that pressure, I think, is a huge advantage as well.
Is that putting you off going down that path?
Not at all. I think, like, if we did need to, I'd find the right investor. Would be very picky. To date, everyone who's come through hasn't been suitable.
Right.
And that's the only reason why we haven't agreed to any shareholders in that space at the moment, is just purely because they wouldn't be a good fit for our company or what we want to achieve with the company.
I love that you are so clear on that, and prepared to say no when the fit is not right. You're not just enticed by the potential of what that investment might allow you to do. You're actually taking a whole different view on that and thinking about, are you the right fit? And if you are not the right fit, then we're not going to grow in the way that we have the vision for. So I love that you have got that strength inside you and that clarity to say, actually, no, we're good. We'll continue on. And, yes, we are looking for investors, but it's got to be the right one. So,
yeah. And it has taken longer for us to build and grow. Like, we did do it the hard way, but.
Yeah. But what that says for me is that you're still in control. You're still building the company with your vision in mind, and you're not compromising that in any way.
Yeah, we see our company as being as representing Māori. And that, so whenever those conversations come past, and like I'm having a chat with investors or potential investors, and they're like, oh, we can do this, we can do that, And the first thing I say to them is, well, how much do you know about our culture? Or what do you know about Te Tiriti?
Yeah.
And they can't answer that. It's like, well, then no, you're not a good fit for us.
Yeah.
Because all
nice.
that tells me is that they're seeing dollar signs in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the attractive piece. There's no what we're actually creating and the impact that we're having for our communities is not of value to them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't want you near our company.
Yeah. The whole purpose, you're just not fit for purpose because what's important to us is not important to you. Yeah. Love that. Yeah, that clarity, hands down to you. Like, that's great. What would you say has been one of your biggest challenges along the journey so far?
Working with iwi. I know, after I just big speech about it for the community. Yeah, they're the biggest challenge.
Yeah. I mean, but I actually think that that's just because we're in the space and time. We're just in that post-settlement. Some have been settled longer than others. We're in that post-settlement. Iwi is still trying to find their feet big time. And just trying to work it out. I'm forever hopeful that, in another 10, 20 years that, iwi organizations anyway, will be in a different space, and they'll have more capacity to look at the welfare of our people, like how are we really telling our stories there. So I'm always optimistic that where we are now is just a space and time, and it's very much still post-settlement, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's been good, like, and the challenges that have been put forward on us have been really helpful, like really useful, because it's meant that we can retune our processes, our internal processes, to be able to deliver better and to deliver better services, create better products. So that's been great. It's just, it is hard.
Yeah.
But it has been a shift as well, that we've seen in the 6 years we've been around, and more are starting to engage or become curious around what we've created, which has been, that's been great to see as well.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And I think that'll continue, and just from my little corner of the world. I think that will continue. I'm quietly excited that I'm seeing iwi be more smart and savvy with their investments compared to where they were at when, post-settlement. But I think that was just like, let's settle in, let's do what's safe now, let's look at, other commercial opportunities. So, that's why I'm always optimistic that, the next 10, 15, 20 years in that iwi space, it'll be quite different to where we are now. So and what that will mean for your business will be, quite incredible too, because all iwi are talking about, how do we tell our stories? How do we collate our stories and make them available, not only for those that live at home, but for wherever our iwi live around the world? And how do we impart those stories? Because, we're not all sitting around in the marae or around the kitchen, listening to our kaumātua tell the stories of old and be able to carry those forward. So what you're doing is really exciting for that space anyway.
Yeah, and that's what I think about too. Like and maybe I think about this as well when I've got like a problem to solve or kind of hit a brick wall. It's like I think about the number of iwi in our country, and then I'm like, well, if even just one of them, if they had just one story each on Tūwhiri, how cool would that be to see from a bird's eye view on top of Aotearoa map, like just all these triggers for our stories told the way that we want them told, and told by us. And then in addition to that, it's like, imagine how many rangatahi we've upskilled to be able to create that content. So when we talk about more Māori and more Pacifica as well in tech, it's like, if you think of it at just even that small scale, one story each,
Yeah.
That's multiple rangatahi or even young adults or even adults who want to upskill, who are learning new digital tech skills and who could quite easily enter into the tech sector.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, that's the beauty, I think, of what we've created at ARA, is that being able to just, have that framework in place to be able to take up where we can.
Beautiful. Love that. Yeah. So many benefits to what your future looks like and how that is going to, provide job opportunities and ongoing storytelling for iwi and other Indigenous cultures around the world. That's super exciting. As we kind of bring this in, what would you say are the 3 things that you would want to share with another budding entrepreneur who wants to get into the tech space?
Build a great network of supporters and people who you trust. Actually, not only supporters, but you need the Debbie Downers in there too, or the naysayers as well, because they're the ones that will hold you accountable and really challenge your thought process. But I think once you get that network together, it's a great resource to reach out to different people for advice or for help or for connections. And they might lean back on you too. So it creates a nice mutually beneficial relationship. So definitely number 1, network. Number 2, I think look for, if you are the founder or you're going to be running your company, look for the gaps in your own skills and capabilities, where you can either hire someone to fill that gap for you, or you can reach out to experts and mentors and advisors to upskill or create a better personal development for yourself. And number 3, and I'm a firm believer of this because I do this every day, is make sure that you take time for yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you're not healthy yourself, then you can't lead your team, or you can't be giving 100% of yourself to a task if you're feeling run down or you're not eating well. I actually block out time in my calendar where I'll work out, or I'll go for a walk, or I'll be doing some kind of physical activity, because it keeps me sane.
Yeah. We have to look after ourselves and learn to, nurture our inner being in order to then lead others well. So, I love that you do that. You make time for you. You make sure that you are well in order to, step up and lead the business and lead the team to achieve its big vision. So that's great advice.
I have one more, actually. I've been thinking about this for a little while now because it keeps coming up in different conversations. And the other thing I think, which is really important, is to remember that it's your company. So you don't have to structure it just because a corporate organization here is doing a Monday to Friday 9 to 5. Like, you don't have to do that. Or it's like, oh, we've got this policy for that. If that policy doesn't relate to your company, you don't have to do that. And I think sometimes people forget that. And it's like going back to, oh, you need to hire more people. It's like, why? I didn't start my company to be told how to run it.
Yeah.
I think people forget that when you're in it.
Yeah. And, that's why I started this podcast called Business Your Way, because we don't have to do anything that doesn't fit the way that we want to operate, whether that is culturally or values-wise or just the way we want to live our life. We can have both. We can live a great life and have a great business. And we just need to work out how that works for us. We don't have to take on any predetermined structure or policy or way, or you just take people's advice with great salt and then think about, does that work for me? And if it does, run with it. If it doesn't, leave it behind. best advice for today. Love that. Beautiful. Amber, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Gosh, we talked about a lot of things today and I loved it all. If people wanted to go and find out, gosh, how they can come work for you or work with you or have their stories told by you, where do you want them to go?
ARAJourneys.com. Nice and simple. Yeah, ARAJourneys.com. All our contact details are on the website. You can see what we've done, the services that we provide. Everything's on there.
Beautiful. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your journeys, sharing the behind the scenes of how you run your business your way. And I'm excited to see your visions and your big audacious goals come to fruition for you. I am cheering you on all the way. So ngā mihi ki a koe e hoa.
Oh, ngā mihi, thank you for having me. It's been great chat.